Welcome to the Ransomed Heart Podcast. I'm John Eldredge, and in the studio today, if this is a studio, with Craig McConnell. Some of you who follow Craig's blog on our website or who've been to our live conferences are aware that last year Craig was diagnosed with leukemia. Mm-hmm. And so I think this is the first time we've had an opportunity to mention that to our podcast listeners.
Yeah, yeah.
And I hate to just do it like that because it feels like we just dropped an atom bomb. Because we've been walking with this now for almost a year. It was last May.
Right.
And you were on your way to Switzerland to do a conference when your white...
He texts me a message and says, hey, got the results from your routine blood work, physical back in Houston. We may have a problem. Give me a call.
Oh.
This is as I was in between flights.
Yeah, you're in LAX trying to get an international flight to Zurich.
Yeah.
And come to find out that it was your white blood cells count that was through the roof. And,
right.
And then subsequent tests. And
found out I have leukemia.
Obviously, friends have huge news and something we've been living with for a while, but I wanted to make you aware of. And Craig's blogs on this have been great. You can find those on our website. And Craig, where were you yesterday?
Yeah. Well, one of the things, once you're diagnosed with cancer, as I've been with leukemia, one of the things that becomes a part of your life are these regular little appointments with your oncologist, and then prior to that appointment, you go in and get your blood taken. They do, or some kind of testing. And for me, they do blood work and kind of get a scan of what's going on inside my body and the, where I'm at with this whole cancer thing. So I've had different experiences going to the cancer center and sitting in the waiting room. And yesterday it was just one of those bad experiences where you walk in and I'm already anxious and just wondering, every time you go to the doctor, what's the report going to be?
Right.
And you are hypersensitive. You're watching his body language, his choice of words, his, everything. You're just reading for some sign of something that they're afraid to tell you or don't want to tell you or trying to go easy with you on. And blood pressure's up and you're just hyped, and some combination of our blend of faith, trusting God for your life, your future, your health, your body, and some fear that it's all going to end much sooner than you'd hope or want. So I'm in this waiting room, John, and there's, it's a big horseshoe, and there's probably, 10, 12 people in there waiting. And it's a city hospital, and probably a fine city hospital for that matter. But, it's the industrial carpet, odd color chairs, weird painting. It's old. And everybody in there is on this journey of cancer. And most of the people in the room look like they were on the tail end of the journey. The room is just filled with, you go around the room and you couldn't help but think, he's got 1 month.
Yeah.
Looks like she's got 3.
Yes. What does he have?
Yeah.
What is she? Oh, oh my goodness. She looks like she's 1 foot out the door.
And there's the little plaques with dreams and hopes and living life. If life rains, learn to dance in the rain. And then there's the looped video of some mountainscapes and beautiful scenery. And then there's these pictures that look like they've been on the wall for about 20 years that at one point spoke of inspiration, paintings of hummingbirds, but they're faded.
Yeah.
And everything's faded and worn. And I'm sitting there going, and so am I.
Including the people.
Yeah. It's like, and John, there was such a spirit of death, of hopelessness. It was like being in a room full of jello, of some death, horrid jello. That it was just so thick. There is no life. There's, it's death wins in the end, and you suffer till then. And it just was was horrible. Now, I've gone other times and haven't felt that, but this time it just, it was horrible.
How did you get that off of you?
Well, I run a little late in discernment, and it wasn't until it was on me that I realized it was even there. I just found myself in hopelessness, and then, Christ, just like a snap, just wait a second. There is a gospel. There is life. This is not what is true. And I just started praying, the life of Christ over me, in me, through me, binding away in the presence of God and by his authority, just binding away death and hopelessness. And, I go to give blood in a little room, and I'd previously been in a nice private hospital where they draw your blood individually and privately. Well, I'm in a room with several other people, and I'm sitting next to a guy with ready for the lab tech to take my blood, and he's telling the lab tech, yeah, Dr. So-and-so says I don't have long to go. And it was like, no, that's not my story. There is a gospel, resurrection. But it was one of those rare experiences where this just death and hopelessness, bind it, stood against it, prayed the life of Christ, and that seemed to lift it. But when I was driving away later, it was like you'd been mugged or something, and you came out unscathed, but now you viewed the world with a little different set of eyes, that there's muggers, there's criminals out there. And it's like, whoa, this death thing, I wonder where it moves. I wonder where, it's out there. Right. It's in hospitals and clinics and in marriages. I was just aware of this looming thing that moves around.
Whoa, that's huge. What did you do to catch your heart? Yeah. Driving home that night, today? I mean, at what point were you able to catch your heart?
Yeah. Slowly, I found myself yesterday and then today when I actually went in for my appointment with the doctor, just in bringing the life of Christ, the resurrection of Christ, the gospel over my heart, my mind, my life, my body, over the little space I occupy in a waiting room or in a lab room, and just praying and thinking and setting my mind on what's true, clinging to God. And it took quite a while, to be honest with you. It's like a residual that just hangs on you.
Yes.
Kind of shakes you.
Yep.
And that's probably why part of the reasons I didn't sleep well last night. I'm awfully tired today. It's just fighting that.
Yep.
And, John, I just I looked at these people, and I just, there was a part of me that just wept because I was fighting it.
Yes.
And I was aware of it. I didn't want to accept it, and I knew there was something else. And whether they're Christians or not, I just thought, gosh, what would it be like to live under this, like so many people do?
And just accept some death thing over you.
And they would never describe it as a death thing.
Right.
It's just the sapping of hope, of joy. It's just a giving in the inevitability of suffering, and there's just an absence of the reality and the hope of the gospel.
Friends, if you are new to Ransomed Heart, now we're going to need to do an intro to this. So I'm going to record an intro, Art. You can edit what I just blurbed out. This struggle of life and death is core to Scripture. It's basic to the war of good and evil. I'm thinking of, Joshua, I set before you life and death today. Choose life. Choose life. And then Paul in Romans 6, this was the verse I was holding on to at Easter this year, where he says, just as Christ was raised from the dead through the glory of the Father, so we too may live a new life. Mm-hmm. And that's not future. He's talking about now.
Yeah.
And then in Romans 8, he says that if the Spirit of him who raised Jesus from the dead is living in you, then he who raised Christ from the dead will also give life to your mortal bodies through his Spirit that dwells in you. And just presenting our bodies to God,
yes,
inviting his life to fill us. In fact, we actually have a prayer for that on our website. If you've browsed the Ransomed Heart website at all, there's a section called More, and as in, I want more. And on that, one of the offerings on that is prayers, and you'll find the daily prayer and others there. But a prayer for life is on that section, and it's what you are describing. It's praying against death, praying for life.
Yeah, and I think it seems like if you don't pray for life, and if you aren't vigilant in that fight, that fog and cloud of death it inevitably overtakes you. You have to fight for life. It doesn't come.
It's worth it.
Yes.
So, Craig, what did the doctor say? How's your blood work?
Yeah. It's good, John. It was great news today. My numbers have stabilized, and in his words, I could live 25, 30 years and die of something entirely different. And that's what I'm hoping and praying for. So I'm asymptomatic, no symptoms. They got it very early. I'm in stage 0 right now, and I'm feeling good.
For which we give thanks.
Yes.